Well, a new confident and darker direction ups the stakes and tension and makes the show a lot more interesting. Hey guys, came out of the season premiere of Shadowhunters Season 2, Episode 1, This Guilty Blood. And guys, I was definitely really looking forward to this premiere. As you guys know, I wasn't a huge fan of the first season, but if you saw my last review, you know that I binged this show in time for this season. And I'm very happy I did, because I really did like the way that things left off. And I have to say that this premiere really impressed me, I have to say. I mean, yes, there were still some things I thought were a bit cheesy, and no, this wasn't a perfect premiere, but like I said, this was more confident, this was darker, they did a lot more with the characters, particularly Jace has a lot more interesting stuff going on. They upped the tension, they introduced a new character that could potentially change the way things are run, and you can definitely tell that they are trying to improve the show, and I really did love the way this episode was overall. I thought there was some really interesting stuff going on here, and by adding a couple characters, they've made things that much more interesting. I'm gonna get into that, but let's get into the first scene, which the first scene that almost pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie. I almost got really pissed at what was going on here, because we see Jace, he's on the deck of the ship, but he's stepping over dead bodies, and we don't exactly know what's going on. This is literally right after he's making the decision to go with Valentine, and a voice gets his attention, and it's Clary, and I'm like, really? Literally, he just made that decision? I was thinking the show was about to completely abandon this. I was like, okay, why are you doing this? I literally thought the show was going to end this plot, and that they were going to kill Valentine because people didn't like him. I really thought they were going to do that. I've seen shows do that so many times, and I've said it before, when you start something, you stick with it. You don't end it because people don't like it. You end it if it needs to be ended. So I really did get pissed in this beginning, but Jace runs to her, wants to get her back through the portal and off the ship, and Valentine appears, pulls a blade on them, engaging Jace in an intense battle with skill on his side, and Jace stabs Valentine in the stomach. The sibling pair runs away, taking Valentine for dead. I'm like, there's no way that they've just killed him. I did not think that happened, but they're once again thwarted by Valentine. Jace is confused. He continues to fight him, and I'm like, what's really going on here? Why can't they kill Valentine? You know, what's going on? And Jace kills him again and again, and they fall several stories down to a lower part of the ship, and within seconds, Valentine's body quickly morphs into a completely different person. We find out that Jace was actually never fighting Valentine, was just people disguised as him, because we know how much bigger Valentine's army is multiplied. So he's got a lot more people on his side, and a lot more people that he can use if he needs them, and Clary and Jace then realize that they're in a prison within the ship. They are animalized downworlders and other creatures in cages, and Jace wants Clary to leave the ship via the portal, but when Clary scans her rune, she morphs into Valentine, we realize. The entire sequence pretty much was a test, just to see basically if he would get away. You know, if he was given the opportunity, would he really run away? And he says that his skills are unparalleled, but his loyalty is sorely lacking. He's injected with a tranquilizer. Valentine has his men chain him up, and immediately Valentine is that much more threatening than he was last season. You know how I said I didn't think Valentine was threatening last season? I don't know what happened, but this episode, I felt it. I felt that tension. I felt that menacing presence. They really might be able to make Valentine this menacing presence if they stick with the story. Such a great opening, such a well done scene that perfectly shows the darker direction the show's gone. The second that we realize this was all a test, I'm like, okay, now I'm on board with what the show is doing, and luckily from here, the rest of the premiere was pretty great. So at the New York Institute, we see Alec, Isabella, Magnus, and Lydia. They're planning their mission to find Jace, but Alec is very anxious because he can't feel Jace through their parabatai bond. You know, that's something that was a big part of the first season, is how important this bond was between Alec and Jace, and he can't feel him. He doesn't know where Jace has gone. He's that far away, he can't feel him. Magnus is trying to assure Alec that they'll find Jace soon, but despite efforts to look for him, Magnus is unable to locate Jace, which makes Alec bark orders as he frustratingly reminds him that his brother is missing, and no one can get him to see reason. Alec storms off from the group, and you can understand this. I mean, again, Alec very much cares about Jace. They've had this parabatai bond, and I'm glad they're not doing, you know, they have Alec and Magnus together, because I like seeing them together. I like this is more of a brotherly thing. I think it just makes the relationship more interesting. It was kind of awkward last season with Alec and Jason. I like that they've made amends to the point where Alec now wants to search for him. I like the direction this is going. And this I kind of saw why Alec was kind of mad at Magnus. This I definitely understood. I was worried that they were going to have the whole thing with Camille be a problem. Like, she was going to be the thing that was going to ruin the relationship. But if this is what it's all about, that Magnus can't help Alec, I mean, it's not really Magnus's fault, but I can understand why Alec is getting a little bit upset about it. I mean, this is his brother. He very much cares about him. You definitely understand that. So I definitely really enjoyed that. However, the best aspect to this episode for me was seeing Jocelyn, because, as we know, Jocelyn was in stasis throughout most of season 1, and there's a lot that she needs to catch up on, and they really did take the time they needed to catch her up, and to catch her up on things, and I really did like the way they did that here, because season 1 was very fast-paced. Not this episode wasn't, but I feel like they didn't do too much here. Like, they definitely did what they needed to do, because Clary and Jocelyn are finally reunited, but their relation was forever changed because of Clary's learned independence while her mother had been kidnapped. You know, she's a lot stronger this season, and you know what? I really feel Clary's leadership role now, because she really has fit in with this group, and she quickly challenges her mother, demands to know why she was lied to and who she really is, and Clary even shows her mother the box from under the floorboards that contains the token from Jonathan. These are all things she learned without her mother, so there's a lot of questions that she has for her, and Clary tells her that his name is Jace and that he's alive. Jocelyn doesn't believe a second of this because she saw Jonathan burn, and we know that, you know, they think that Jonathan is Jace, and Luke arrives right on cue. Jocelyn demands answers from him about her son, but before they can dive in the conversation, Simon shows up, and Jocelyn learns that he's been turned into a vampire in her absence, and the conversation is put on pause again when they receive an urgent message to return to the Institute. So I like the way that Jocelyn is starting to get things, but at the same time, things are kind of crazy, so they can't really get any full answers, and I like the way that that was done here. I think definitely putting Jocelyn into the show, it adds this adult dynamic that we didn't really have last season, because yeah, Jocelyn is definitely superior to Clary, and I like that Clary in this episode, she has to sit out for some things, because Jocelyn wants to play the major role. You know, she's been into this longer, she knows that this kind of stuff works, and it adds a more responsible type role that we didn't really have last season, and that's something that already is definitely strengthening this season. So on the roof of the Institute, Alec apologized to Magnus, saying that Jace is a part of him through their rune. They are physically and emotionally connected, and if he dies, a part of him dies too. You know, he just can't see Jace die. That's his parabatai. It will break him, really. And Magnus wants to support Alec and help him, but he doesn't want to use magic to help Alec track Jace via the rune, because the last time they tried it, Alec was almost killed. And obviously, Magnus doesn't want to risk that. So letting his emotions get to him, Alec overreacts one more. He demands to know why Magnus can't help, implying that Magnus is in debt to him, and Alex realizes the weight of his words, and surprised, he actually storms off again. And you can understand why. You know, he's very much in agony and pain right now. You know, part of his brother, he doesn't know where he is, and it's really starting to mess with him. And as much as I think Alec and Magnus should be together, I think already we can see that they have a lot of different type of opinions, and they just work very differently. Alec's a lot more dramatic. He takes, you know, he reacts to things differently than Magnus does, and we definitely do see that here. You know, Magnus is more of the fun guy. He's someone who will crack a lot of jokes and things like that, while Alec is very emotional when it comes to this stuff. So I do like the way they're showing that relationship, and I like that it's affecting them, but they're not breaking up yet. I like the way they're doing that, because I was a little bit worried about that. But now we get to one of the best changes, I think, this season. That is the introduction of Victor Aldertree, who will be the new head of the New York Institute. Now, we did not see this character last season, and I already am really liking what we're getting from him. The current leadership was deemed wholly ineffective. Needless to say, Isabella, Alec, and Lydia aren't having any of it. You know, they don't want anything to do with him. They feel that they don't need this guy, but he's there to, you know, whip them into shape, because he really feels that there's no leadership. He feels that the Institute in general is crumbling, and he feels that he needs to, you know, take this into account and really try to fix it, and you understand that, really. So Aldertree wants to interview everyone who was on the mission when Jace disappeared. He also puts the building on lockdown, which means no one is out looking for Jace. So this really does kind of put them at a stall, really. You know, we see that they really do want to look for him, but obviously Aldertree isn't letting them look for him, so they can't really do anything like that. So I thought that was definitely very interesting to see, and I like the introduction of Aldertree. You can already tell that he's going to be causing some sort of situation, but he's not necessarily a villain. This is someone who thinks that this is corrupted and that he feels like something needs to be done, and you very well understand that. And I like Aldertree's presence into the show. Again, it's this new adult type role that we didn't really have last season, and when things were, going so easily and things were just not really getting done, I think really if you had these characters there last season, a lot of the shit that happened probably would not have happened, and I think we're definitely seeing that here, and I really am liking what we're seeing here. I think we're just seeing a much more focused type season. I think Aldertree is definitely going to be a big part of that, definitely. However, the thing I'm most interested in this season, as much as I like Jocelyn, is what they did with Jace. Because, as I told you guys, Jace last season was very sporadic with character development. He definitely had stuff going on, but not to the extent of what he had in this episode. This episode, him and Valentine, I loved it. I really did. I wish we got more of this last season, but I'm glad we're getting it now, because now we're starting to see, okay, this is why Jace is, this is why Valentine is so feared by many. This is why Jace wants nothing to do with Valentine. And especially with Jace knowing the information that he does, it really has changed the relationship overall. So Jace is hanging from the ceiling by his wrist. He's being beaten. He's tortured by his father's men. And Valentine calls it off because he can see that Jace is really starting to show no sign. It seems that Jace, there's nothing happening to him. He's just kind of standing there. And Jace hasn't lost his dark humor or spirit. He says he killed twice today. He killed him twice today. He wants to go for another round. And Valentine simply scans one of Jace's runes. He tells his son that he wants to talk. He has Jace cleaned up and brought upstairs. So I like this. I like that they're not just constantly at each other's throats. I like that there is a part of Valentine we're seeing in this season that does have a heart. He actually does want to connect with his son. He actually does want to make an effort to get close to him. And that's something that we didn't see last season. That's something that I'm loving that the writers are doing here. That they really are trying to make Valentine a character and not just some mustache twirling bad guy, which is exactly what he was last season. Last season, he was that cheesy villain who just tried to have all these schemes, but now that he has Jace, now he's going to try to lure Jace to him, but now that he's lured him to him, I think he's going to try to get close to him. I like the direction this is going. So Clary's being interviewed, kind of interrogated actually by Aldertree, and she confirms the fight with Valentine was an impossible situation. There's really nothing they could have done about it, and she reveals, however, that Jace knew Valentine was coming and didn't really do anything to stop him. So it is kind of his fault, and I like that she's pinning this on Jace, because yeah, this is totally all Jace's fault, and he finds it kind of curious that Jace knew Valentine was setting a trap and Clary's aware of her mistake, and he's more determined than ever to find Jace, but really for what purpose? You get the sense that him finding Jace is completely different than why the rest of them want to find him. So in the kitchen on the ship, Valentine's cooking spaghetti, and Jace refuses to allow any kind of bonding to happen. So Jace reaches, because he doesn't want any sort of relationship with Valentine, while Valentine does, and Jace reaches for a carving knife. He attempts to stab his father, but Valentine's too quick. The knife goes flying into the wall, and he still wants to earn his son's trust, and he tells Jace to ask him anything he wants, and he says that as Michael Wayland, he knew that he'd be safe. And this is something that really is starting to upset Jace. I mean, think about it. For years, Valentine pretended to be his father, Michael Wayland. This is who Jace thought was his father all this time, when in reality, it was just Valentine just pretending to be his father to get close to him. And you get why Valentine did that, honestly. They did a good job of, I think, not justifying, but just get us to understand why Valentine would do this. He didn't do this to torture Jace. He did this to clearly try to have some kind of bond with him, because he knew as Valentine, there's no way that Jace would ever even think about bonding with him, and as Michael, he actually would, and that's something that we very much see throughout this episode. So Jace is refusing to accept this as a rationale for the lies. He's angry he spent years mourning the loss of his father, and Valentine argues that the trauma made Jace stronger, but Jace doesn't let him have an ounce of credit, saying it was the Lightwoods who raised him to be strong. All he's ever done is lie to him, and that's very much true. I mean, Valentine has in fact lied, and Valentine tells Jace his mother deserted him because of his blood, and Valentine allows Jace to see a memory. He injects demon blood into Jace while he was still in his mother's womb, we found out. Now, this is very interesting, because again, we know that Clary just had that talk with Jace in the finale about, oh, you're not Valentine, you're not dark, you don't have to be dark. But now that we know that Jace has demon blood in him, now I'm wondering, is Jace just destined to be dark? Because that's what it seems like to me. It seems like Jace, no matter what he does, he's gonna be dark. So Jace hasn't just felt stronger than everyone around him his entire life. He is just that much stronger. That's why, because he has this demon blood. That's why he's always, the one that is the dominator. He's always dominating people in fights. That's why he's always, hurting people. That's why he always has the upper hand. It's not because he's learned to do that. He just is naturally. And Jace was always going to be Valentine's perfect weapon. And finding this out, again, adds this whole new layer to Valentine that we did not see at all last season. And I'm loving that we're getting this season. Just makes me care so much about this relationship. It takes a character that I found to be really cartoony and really dumb and adding so many type of layers to him, and I'm loving the way they did that here. I thought that was extremely well done in this episode. So Alec tries to make amends with Magnus, who says that he doesn't know Alec anything, and Magnus says that he didn't risk anything for him, he did it for him, and Magnus makes it clear to Alec that he doesn't want to do anything to do with him, but the Institute alarm sounds, and because obviously, Alec keeps running off. He's getting quite pissed about it, and the Institute alarm sounds. Jace identifies the cause for an emergency meeting, and Aldertree, we realize, wants to still find Jace, but he's now convinced that he was a conspirator in Valentine's plan, which is starting to be true. I mean, we're very quickly seeing that he and Valentine are very much working together. Not for forever, but that's what Valentine wants to do. So he announced to the entire room that Clary had provided the clue that he needed to locate Jace. And there are also some new rules in town. Now, these, again, are very interesting. Downworlders are forbidden from entering the Institute, but Luke pushes back, saying that his badge gives him access to information that the Institute needs. And this I like. I actually love this change because, like I said, I never really felt Luke needed to be there. I just kind of felt like Luke was there. So by having this rule, I think is very interesting. And Simon realizes it's almost dawn. He has nowhere to go if he's forced out. But Aldertree doesn't let him leave. Basically forces him to stay. Luckily, Luke is there to help him. And I like the bond that these two do have. I love Luke and Simon's relationship overall. I like that, he made this rule. Again, it's just a nice change that makes things a little bit easier to follow. And Aldertree announced that Jace is a traitor because he knew about the trap and that Jace had multiple chances to kill Valentine, but he didn't, of course. So Clary and company is also banned from participating in the hunt for Jace, which, that again, very interesting. I like that they can't do this. And Victor, he also lifts the lockdown order for everyone except for Clary and Jocelyn. So Clary's convinced that if Aldertree's men find Jace, they're just going to kill him. But Jocelyn gets Clary to back down because she knows that this is against the rule. They just need to listen to them. Clary's not willing to do that. And again, I'm getting that leadership role from Clary in a way that I didn't, just from seeing Clary's determination to fight. Her doing whatever she can to rally against Aldertree. This is someone who she very much cares about, who she knows that she'll do anything to fight, but in reality, she can't really do anything about it because Aldertree's making all these ridiculous rules she wants to fight, while Jocelyn's willing to conform to society. It's showing us why Clary is the main character, why she is the leader, why we should root for her rather than ridicule her, and I'm definitely rooting for a lot more than I did last season. I think, in general, Catherine McNamara is really rising the occasion this season of really presenting that leadership role in a way she really didn't last season. So Luke and Simon then have some bonding time, but Simon's left alone when Luke needs to leave. Luke assures him that he can remain in the warehouse on the docks, but Simon's approached by other vampires who don't want him there. So he's frustrated when his spell to control them doesn't work, and they easily throw Simon to a garage, and once he's alone, Simon's able to fly up into the air and gently drops himself down a canoe to sleep, and I like this. I like that Simon, again, is kind of outnumbered. I like that he's kind of on his own because he doesn't really know what to do now. I mean, he's a vampire. He can't go back home, and he can't be in the sunlight. So there's a lot of disadvantages that Simon has, and I like the way he's kind of trying to rise up against it. So Isabella and Clary, unable to talk in private, they decide to work on physical training because, of course, they can't talk in private. That's another rule that Aldertree has made, and they're going to work on physical training and sparring should they have to eventually defeat Valentine. So she reveals via metaphors to Clary that she has a plan for how Clary can escape and look for Jace, and it involves becoming his enemy. So that's very interesting, saying becoming your enemy. And I don't know if that's saying that basically Clary disguised herself, we find her as Aldertree, to leave the Institute and find Luke. So this, again, this is very interesting. I didn't know that Clary could do this, but I guess she can. So she takes her advice literally, and Luke gives her location away to Jocelyn. Within minutes, Jocelyn has both Clary and Simon both locked in the garage. Simon continues to work in his vampire skills to help them break out, but he admits he's enjoying their together time. You can tell that he's trying to do whatever he can to try to get with her because he talked to Luke about it, and I'm liking this so far. I like that Simon wants to be with Clary. You know, we've known he's always liked Clary. We've known that he's always thought of her as more than a friend, and now that he knows that Jace is her brother and is not exactly really in the picture anymore, now he's doing whatever he can to try to be with Clary, and it's kind of funny. I really am enjoying it overall. I've said it before, Simon's probably my favorite character on the show, and this season is the same. I'm really loving what they're doing in this season, but just as he was about to admit to Clary that he was in love with her, his focus bursts the door open, they're able to escape, and hey, maybe next time, man, I don't know. It really did not work for him in this time, but he was about to admit to her, and it did not work. I mean, that's what happens. It really does. So I thought it was definitely, I felt bad for him, but at the same time, I like that they're taking their time with that. Season 1, he would have just told her we would have had this done with, but Season 2, they're really taking their time, and again, I like that they're doing that here. So at Magnus' apartment, we learn that Magnus has agreed to help Alec trace Jace using their combined abilities. Despite the potential risks, Alec is able to see through his vision that Jace is on land, not on the ship, and Alec immediately rushes back out to the Institute, and when Aldertree finds out the news, he orders Alec and Isabella to be on lockdown so they'll be able to interfere with Jace's capture rescue, because he knows that they're not going to kill Jace. He wants Jace dead, and anyone who opposes it, he does not want to fight, and they're doing whatever they can to try to rise up against him. Unfortunately, because of Aldertree, they're kind of outnumbered at this point. So Jace and Valentine then arrived at a pizza parlor that has been overtaken by Maria, the leader of a vampire nest, and when faced with a dozen vampires, Jace is able to kill them all easily. So that seems like it was the point of coming there, just to show Jace's ability, and for Valentine to prove to Jace just how lethal he is because of the demon blood. So that was pretty crazy, the way he literally wiped out every single one of those vampires, and it doesn't feel far-fetched at all, because now we know that Jace is stronger than all of them. He has this demon blood in him, and basically Jace's ethics hold him back from killing Maria, though, because when the wooden stake is at her throat, she announces her commitment to the Accords, and Valentine wants Jace to kill her anyway, but Jace is very hesitant. You know, he still has that goodness in him. He knows that, you know, he's not a terrible person. He has that goodness in him, and he taunts her, causing her to lunge at his throat, and we're not sure if she fell into the stake or if Jace stabbed her, but either way, she does wind up dead like Valentine had planned, but we just don't know how. We don't know if Jace did it. We don't know if he did it. We don't really know what's going on here. We just know that Valentine is easily getting Jace on his side. So then we get to the ending here, and this ending was so well done. I actually love the way this episode ended. Something that Shadowhunters, I think, had a problem in Season 1 is that their endings were not at all memorable. I really did not find their endings to be that memorable. It just, the episode kind of ended. Not this season. This season, this was a great ending. Arriving at the scene, Clary and Simon sprint towards Jace. Jocelyn's too fast. She shoots at Jace with a crossbow, and in a surprise move, Valentine dives in front of him. So this was crazy, we saw. The spike shoots through Valentine's chest, and he's willing to take his life for his son. This was insane, and Jace helps him back through the portal before Jocelyn can hit them. It seems that he actually does want to help Valentine in the end, so that leaves Clary and Simon as witness, and that is how the episode ends. So we see that she was very close to killing Jace, but Valentine took the bullet for him. I never thought Valentine would do something like that, but that is how this episode ends. Really great premiere overall. Let's just get in this episode and where I think we're headed for this season. So, like I said, guys, I really did love this premiere overall. I mean, there's a lot of changes for the show. Like I said, they have new showrunners. The budget, you can tell, is a lot bigger. One of the smallest differences, just the swords that they use, you know, little swords that they use. In the first season, they kind of did look like just like toys. They really did. A lot of people complain about this, and it seems like a ridiculous complaint, but they did. They look like toys you could buy like Toys R Us that just, they didn't look that menacing. They didn't look like real swords. This season, they look like actual swords, and I think it's just because they have a bigger budget. The costumes look better, the control room looks better, and there's just a lot more interesting stuff going on that I really am loving so far about this season. First of all, let's talk about Jace and Valentine, because this whole relationship I'm really enjoying. I didn't like Valentine Season 1. Again, I thought the actor wasn't good. But this season, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing that love that he has for Jace. I'm seeing that he really does want to help his son. And the fact that he took the bullet for him, that's pretty crazy. They're kind of humanizing Valentine, seems like, this season. And I'm liking it. I'm liking what we're seeing of them trying to humanize Valentine because I'm really into it. I think it's very interesting where they're going with this overall. But the big question is, did Valentine kill Maria? Was it Jace? And was Jace really willing to kill her? That's my big question. I'm not entirely sure. By Valentine doing that, I kind of feel like he did. I feel like he definitely is trying to help Jace, definitely, and I think it's interesting the direction that that's headed. So the other big question, though, is does Jace, is he destined to be good or is he destined to be evil? I feel like there is a balance somewhere, but it seems like he is meant to be evil. I mean, Valentine would just put the demon blood in him if he didn't want to be evil. He clearly, again, he has fashioned him to be his, partner for the longest time. You definitely see that here. So I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. Jocelyn almost killed Jace, we saw. So I don't think Jocelyn believes that Jace is in fact Jonathan, which Clary and Simon and Luke, they have that knowledge that he is in fact Jonathan, but I'm pretty sure that, she thinks differently. So definitely I think there's more to that story. And I know there's another twist coming. I just don't exactly know what it's all about. I just heard people say there's another twist and that this is only half of it. So I think definitely there's going to be more to that. We'll have to see. Clary and Simon, again, it really seems like Simon is trying to get with Clary, and I'm into it. I like that he almost told Clary that he liked her. I like that he is starting to have feelings for her, and I like that he really wants to be with her, because again, he knows he has a shot. Now that Jace is no longer in the picture, she can't have the relation with Jace anymore. I like that now, it seems that he wants to be with her. I think it's kind of funny, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. Aldertree. I'm liking Aldertree's presence. Sure, he is definitely changing a lot, but you understand why. He wants to do whatever he can to make sure that Jace is killed because he feels that Jace is causing a lot of problems. And yeah, he really is. I mean, there's a lot of things that Jace did that caused a lot of problems. He could have killed Valentine, but he didn't, and he knows that Jace was the one who stopped himself from killing Valentine. He feels this is causing problems, so you understand why Aldertree wants to kill him. He's not just this evil, savage, corrupted person who wants to kill him. He wants to do it because he really feels that that's going to change a lot of the problems going in with both the Institute and with the Clave. So I'm liking the direction that that's it overall. I think that's very interesting. The whole thing with Luke as well, I like just the littlest change that Luke can't be in the Institute because he's, an Otherworlder. I think that also is just really interesting because, like I said, I just felt like Luke in general, he never really felt like he fit in with the rest of the group. He does fit in very well with Simon. Their chemistry is spot on. I think they have some really funny scenes together. They have some really good banter. This is this is his, it's someone who he considers a daughter's best friend, and he's always kind of bonded with him well. I like the direction that that's headed, so that's definitely going to be a lot of fun, and I like their dynamic overall. It looks like Simon's kind of having a hard time fitting in, like he's trying to figure out, where am I really? Am I a Shadowhunter? Am I a vampire? Where do I really fit in? And I like that. And the other thing, like I said, I really feel Clary's leadership a lot more. You can understand she's kind of outnumbered. She really is kind of being a rebel this season, and I'm into it. I like that we're getting a more risky type Clary. Because now that Clary knows all this information, there isn't as much that she has at risk here. She knows that she's not in trouble, so she's going to do whatever she can to make sure that Jace comes back alive, because she's not going to, she doesn't want to be killed, obviously. Even though she doesn't have those feelings for him, she does want some sort of a relationship with him, and I'm liking the direction that's going. My only complaint with this episode is Alec and Magnus. As much as I do like them, I felt that their whole thing was kind of dropped very quickly. They didn't really do much with that plot. It seems like Magnus is starting to get annoyed by Alec, and you understand it, definitely. Alec and Jace are parabatai. Alec wants Jace back. You can totally understand that, but I just felt a lot of that was a little bit too silly, and compared to everything else going on, the writing has really been toned down. In terms of cheese, in terms of story, there wasn't a ton of cheesy dialogue, honestly. The dialogue was pretty on point this episode. There really wasn't anything I laughed at. I felt the action more. I felt the characters more. Still not much for Isabella, but I like that scene with Isabella and Clary. Clary. It definitely shows that Isabella is going to play a bigger role this season eventually. We just don't know what that means by be your enemy. I don't know if she's gonna try to, do something different with Aldertree, but we know that Isabella's always been kind of a risk taker, and the way that she made Clary that way, I'm looking forward to their overall dynamic, because that, again, is going to be very interesting. I like the direction that that's going. And then Jocelyn, I like the incorporation of Jocelyn on the show. I think there's just a whole other layer to both Jocelyn and Valentine. Yeah, Valentine was fine, but having Valentine and Jocelyn adds this whole other layer to the show that we didn't have last season, and I'm really loving that overall. Overall, guys, I love this premiere. I think this might be my favorite episodes of Shadowhunters so far, honestly. I thought this was a very well done episode. The writing was more consistent. I'm just feeling it so much more. Everything I wanted the show to be, I think this season they're going to give us. I think we have writers here. I watched the video. The writers said they care a lot more about the characters, and that's the thing that really worked last season, that the characters were really interesting. And I feel these writers know that. They're going to do what they can to make the characters as interesting as possible, and I really am loving that. And overall, guys, I really did love this premiere. I thought this was really solid overall. It was everything I really wanted this episode to be. And I am going to give the Season 2 premiere of Shadowhunters, Season 2, Episode 1, This Guilty Blood, a 4.5 out of 5 or an A-. So overall, guys, in my review of the Season 2 premiere of Shadowhunters, let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Loved your thoughts on it. Do you like the changes? Do you like the new characters? Did you like Aldertree? Did you like the way they kind of tried to humanize Valentine? Because they're definitely trying to do that. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely looking forward to the season overall. I think it's going to be a much better season than last year. It already seems very consistent, and I'm looking forward to seeing the way the rest of these episodes are. We have 20 episodes, by the way, not 10, and I feel not 13. I feel that's really going to benefit the show because they don't need to rush so many things, but we'll have to see. But I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for, I believe, the second episode of Beyond, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.